An elderly woman got into the car, believing her adoptive daughter was taking her to a nursing home. However, what happened when they arrived at the final destination left her absolutely stunned. The warm breeze of early autumn swept through the quiet streets of Austin, Texas, heralding the arrival of the season that brought relief from the scorching summer heat. Diana Miller, a 75-year-old woman, gazed out the window of the guest room, watching yellowed leaves fall into the small yard of the house she shared with her adoptive daughter, Ashley, and son-in-law, Jaden. That sunny afternoon, the scene outside seemed calm, but inside Diana, emotions churned like a storm. Since losing her husband, Nicholas, and their home in a devastating storm the previous year, Diana had lived with the nagging feeling that her presence was a burden. She spent her days trying not to interfere, limiting herself to the room she occupied. The only sound filling her afternoons was the faint hum of the ceiling fan, a lonely symphony that amplified her solitude. Diana caressed a picture frame on the bedside table, where a photo of her and Nicholas smiling in front of their former home held a place of honor. That house, with its white wooden walls and blooming garden, was more than a shelter. It was where they had built memories over 50 years together. The storm that destroyed it had taken more than bricks and tiles. It had claimed a piece of her soul. Diana had no doubt that Ashley was generous for taking her in. However, her daughter's hectic routine, split between working as a nurse at a local hospital and managing household responsibilities, always seemed to leave her exhausted. Time for conversations or shared moments between mother and daughter was practically non-existent. Jaden, on the other hand, maintained a polite but distant demeanor. Diana felt that despite her efforts to remain invisible, her son-in-law preferred to keep their relationship to the bare minimum. He was a pragmatic man of few words, and Diana often found herself trying to interpret his silences. Was he annoyed by her presence, or simply tired of carrying the tension that seemed to fill every corner of the house? One morning, Diana overheard fragments of a conversation between Ashley and Jaden as they had coffee in the kitchen. "She doesn't talk about it, but you can see she misses home, Jaden. I don't know what else to do." Ashley's voice was heavy with guilt. "You're doing your best, Ash. Maybe she just needs time." Time for what? Diana thought as she listened to the muffled words through the thin wall. The feeling of being a nuisance grew in her chest. Diana's days were filled with small gestures to feel useful. She watered the few plants in the yard, folded clothes left in the dryer, and spent long minutes tidying up her already spotless room. At night, she read cookbooks filled with recipes she never prepared, feeling that using the kitchen without permission would be an intrusion. One afternoon, as she flipped through an old photo album, the longing for Nicholas tightened its grip on her heart. He had always known how to turn ordinary days into something special. A surprise picnic in the garden, a loving note left on the table. Life without him felt like a book missing its final pages. Diana didn't realize she was crying until she heard a knock at the door. It was Ashley, with her tired yet caring demeanor, holding a tray of tea and cookies. "Are you okay, Mom?" she asked softly. Diana quickly wiped her eyes. "Yes, dear, just memories." Ashley hesitated before stepping into the room, something Diana noticed, as if even her daughter was unsure whether she was intruding. She set the tray on the table and gently touched her mother's shoulder. "I know this hasn't been easy." Her voice was gentle but carried a hint of apology. "I just want you to know you're important to us." Before Diana could respond, Ashley hurried out, as though avoiding a long conversation was an urgent necessity. That night, as Diana looked at the stars through her window, she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened slowly, revealing Ashley and Jaden. Both had serious expressions and avoided making eye contact. "Mom?" Ashley began hesitantly. "Pack your things. We're going out tomorrow afternoon." Diana blinked in confusion. "To where?" Ashley simply shook her head, offering no details. "Just trust us, okay?" Jaden added, attempting a smile that felt more obligatory than sincere. Diana's heart sank. The only possible conclusion struck her like a thunderclap. They had finally decided to take her to a nursing home. Through the night, Diana busied herself packing a small suitcase with clothes, books, and the picture frame of her and Nicholas. The sound of zippers echoed in the room as silent tears streamed down her face. She knew Ashley and Jaden had their reasons, but she couldn't help feeling abandoned. The next day, the sun shone brightly as Diana got into the car. Sitting in the back seat, she clutched the suitcase like a shield. The silence during the drive was suffocating. Ashley stared out the window as if lost in another world, and Jaden kept his eyes fixed on the road, his face expressionless. As they left the city, buildings gave way to open fields and towering trees. Diana felt a tightness in her chest. They chose a place far from the city. Will they even visit me? When the car stopped in front of a simple wooden gate, Diana hesitated to get out. Inside, the gravel path led to what looked like a house. Doubt consumed her. Was this the beginning of a lonely end? "Where are we?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ashley merely smiled gently and took her hand. "Come with me, Mom." Reluctantly, Diana followed Ashley through the gate. Each step weighed heavily on her heart, but as she walked along the gravel path and lifted her gaze, she froze in place. In front of her stood something she never expected to see again. Her house. Not the ruins left behind by the storm, but the entire structure, restored as if time had rewound itself. "No, this can't be real," she whispered, tears streaming uncontrollably down her face. Ashley, now visibly emotional, responded, "It's real, Mom. Jaden and I rebuilt everything." The moment felt like an impossible dream. Jaden, who had remained silent until then, added with a hint of emotion in his voice, "We couldn't let you lose this, Diana. We knew how much it meant to you." The sight of the white walls gleaming in the sunlight and the garden, now more vibrant than ever, was overwhelming. In that instant, Diana sensed that something greater was unfolding. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the light scent of lavender from the garden. Standing in the entryway, Diana still couldn't believe her eyes. Her house, the home she thought was lost forever, was there, restored with the kind of care only someone deeply connected to her could have given. Every detail was perfect. The hand-stitched rug she and Nicholas had bought during a trip to Santa Fe, the floral curtains she had sewn herself, and the old wall clock now ticking away the time with a familiar rhythm. How did you do this?" Diana asked, her voice thick with emotion, turning to Ashley and Jaden, who watched her reaction with a mix of relief and joy. Ashley smiled, though there was a hesitation in her expression, as if what she was about to say carried weight. "It was a long process, Mum. We saved what little we could recover from the storm, and we saved every penny we had." Jaden stepped forward, trying to ease the tension Ashley seemed to carry. "We had help from some friends in town, especially Hank, the carpenter. He remembered how you and Nicholas used to care for the crops here and wouldn't take a dime for his work." Diana felt a warmth in her chest at the mention of Hank, an old family friend. But at the same time, a question lingered in her mind. Why had they kept all this a secret? That afternoon, as Diana explored every corner of the house, she felt a mix of joy and melancholy. Opening the living room cabinet, she found a box containing some belongings salvaged from the wreckage. Inside were objects that told stories. A notebook filled with Nicholas's scribbled recipes, an old broken lamp he had stubbornly tried to fix, and a collection of letters she had written to him during his time in the military. Diana sat in the old armchair by the window, clutching the letters. Silent tears fell as she relived moments she thought were lost forever. Theo, the faithful dog who was also an unexpected surprise to find again, rested his head on her lap, as if sensing the depth of her emotions. Ashley entered the room carrying 2 mugs of tea. She placed one beside her mother and sat down across from her. "I thought you'd like some time to explore the house alone, but I needed to come here and tell you something," she said softly, though there was a seriousness in her tone. Diana looked up, quickly wiping her tears. "What is it, dear?" Ashley hesitated, looking down at her hands. "I know that over the past few months it might have seemed like I was distant, and maybe you thought we didn't care about how you were feeling, but the truth is, I just wanted to do this for you." Diana held her daughter's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You've already done so much, Ashley. Just taking me in after everything that happened." Ashley shook her head, interrupting her. "No, Mum. I should have talked to you, told you what we were planning, but I was scared of failing." Ashley's confession touched Diana deeply. At that moment, she realized the distance she had felt wasn't from a lack of love, but from the burden her daughter had carried in silence. Later, as Diana prepared an apple pie in the kitchen, something she hadn't done in ages, Jaden appeared at the doorway. He seemed uneasy, as if unsure whether to come in or not. "Can I help with anything?" he asked hesitantly. Diana smiled, gesturing toward the pile of apples on the counter. "Could you peel these for me?" Jaden grabbed a knife and sat at the table. The sound of peeling apples filled the quiet until he finally spoke. "I know I'm not great at interactions. I've always been that way." Diana looked at him, surprised by his sudden openness. "Oh, Jaden, you don't have to." "I do," he interrupted, without looking up from the apples. "I saw how overwhelmed Ashley was, and instead of helping, I think I just created more distance. It wasn't my intention, He paused, searching for the right words. "I didn't know how to make it work." Diana placed a hand over his, a gesture that made him finally meet her gaze. "We were both navigating rough waters, Jaden. I don't think either of us knew how to handle it." The brief moment of connection brought a new dynamic between them, something Diana had thought might never happen. In the days that followed, Diana began to explore the grounds surrounding the house. The vast land that had once been her property was now partially covered in tall grass, but traces of the garden Nicholas had loved to tend were still there. She remembered how he would spend hours caring for the tomatoes and herbs, always saying, "A home isn't complete without the scent of fresh food." Diana decided to replant the garden, a task that brought her back to life with a calm yet satisfying rhythm. To her surprise, Ashley and Jaden often joined her, helping to dig the soil and plant seeds. Laughter and conversation began to flow more naturally, filling the void that had once dominated the household. One afternoon, as Diana harvested the first lettuce sprouts, an old truck pulled up in front of the gate. It was Hank, the carpenter who had helped rebuild the house. He climbed out with a broad smile, carrying a toolbox. "Just came to check on my handiwork," he said with a laugh before greeting Diana with a warm hug. While Hank inspected the porch, Diana's curiosity got the better of her. "Hank, was it you who suggested they restore the house?" Hank scratched his head, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "Well, actually, it wasn't them who came to me first. Someone else asked for my help first." Diana frowned, puzzled. "Someone else?" Hank seemed to realize he'd said too much. He averted his gaze, mumbling something about needing a tool from his truck. Diana felt her heart race. Who else could have been involved, and why? That night, the Texas sky was dotted with stars, but Diana's heart was heavy. Her conversation with Hank had planted a seed of doubt that was growing rapidly. She watched Ashley and Jaden talking on the porch, their silhouettes illuminated by the soft glow of the hanging light. They seemed more relaxed than they had been in months, but something about Jaden's body language, crossed arms, a slightly tilted head, suggested discomfort. Diana tried to push the thoughts away, but she couldn't. She entered the small office, a room Jaden occasionally used for work, and began flipping through an old photo album on the desk. The pictures brought back happy memories with Nicholas and Ashley, but something about the past felt more present than ever. A loose sheet slipped out of the album and floated gently to the floor. Diana picked it up and saw it was a list of construction materials. At the top of the page was the name of a store over 200 kilometers away, an odd detail that caught her attention. Why would someone travel so far for materials when there were closer options? She tucked the sheet into her pocket, determined to speak with Hank again. The next day, Diana went to Hank's house on the outskirts of town. He was in the yard working on a wooden fence. When he saw her, he stopped what he was doing, took off his hat and greeted her with a friendly smile. "Diana, didn't expect to see you here. How's the adjustment going?" Diana hesitated before responding, holding the materials list in her hand. "Hank, I need to be honest with you. I'm so grateful for what Ashley and Jaden did, but something tells me I don't know the whole story." Hank sighed, running a hand over the back of his neck. You know, Diana, sometimes the truth comes in pieces. You don't always get to see the full picture right away. Then tell me what's missing." Her voice was firm, but there was no anger, only a deep need to understand. Hank hesitated, but finally relented. "It was Nicholas who started this, Diana. Before the storm, he already had plans to renovate the house. When it was destroyed, I thought everything was over. But months later, I got a call. From who?" The question came out almost as a whisper. "From someone you wouldn't expect," Hank said, looking away. "But I think you'd better ask Ashley directly." Diana returned home with her heart pounding. What did Hank know that he wasn't saying? And why did it feel like more people were involved than she'd imagined? That afternoon, as Ashley set the table for dinner, Diana decided to confront her. "Ashley, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Mom." "What is it?" Ashley replied with a distracted smile. Diana pulled the materials list from her pocket and placed it on the table. "Why did you travel so far to get these materials?" Ashley's smile vanished instantly. "Where did you find this?" "In the office. I wasn't looking for anything, but Ashley, I need to know the truth. This house is a wonderful gift, but I feel like there's something you're not telling me." Ashley glanced at Jaden, who had been about to enter the room but stopped mid-step, sensing the tension in the air. "Mom, it's not that simple." "Then explain it to me, Ashley," Diana said, crossing her arms and fixing her daughter with a steady gaze. Jaden stepped forward, his expression cautious. "We didn't want you to know yet because we thought it might be too much." Diana felt a chill in her stomach. "Know what?" Ashley let out a deep sigh, sitting down in one of the chairs. "Nicholas had a plan to renovate the house, and after he was gone, someone decided to continue it for him." Diana blinked, confused. "Someone? Who?" Before Ashley could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Jaden went to answer it and returned moments later, his expression a mix of surprise and discomfort. Behind him stood a familiar figure, a tall man with graying hair and a timid look. "Diana," he said, his voice trembling. It was John, an old friend of Nicholas's and someone Diana hadn't seen in years. John had been a long-time family acquaintance. He and Nicholas had served in the military together and kept sporadic contact over the years. Diana never imagined he might be involved in rebuilding her house, but there he was, standing in her living room. "John, what are you doing here?" Ashley and Jaden stayed silent, giving John the space to respond. He removed his hat, gripping it tightly in his hands. "When I found out what happened to you in the house, I couldn't just stand by," John began. "Nicholas helped me so many times in my life, and I knew he wouldn't have been at peace if this house had been left behind." Diana stood frozen, absorbing his words. "You helped rebuild the house?" she asked, almost in disbelief. John nodded. "But it wasn't just that. I used part of an inheritance I recently received to cover the remaining costs. I didn't say anything before because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything." Diana felt the tears welling up before she could stop them. She didn't know what to say. As her mind tried to process this revelation, a mixture of gratitude and confusion filled her chest. "Why would you do this for me, John?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled faintly. "Because Nicholas was like a brother to me, and because he asked me to do something before he passed." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "What did he ask?" Diana whispered. John looked directly at her, his expression serious. "He asked me to take care of you if anything ever happened to him." The room fell silent. Diana felt as if the world had stopped for a moment. John's presence, his words, and everything that had happened in recent days seemed to converge into an emotional breaking point. Ashley finally broke the silence. "Mom, that's why we thought it was best to wait to tell you. We didn't want this to feel like a burden, but we knew you deserved to know the truth." Diana wiped away her tears, looking at each of them, Ashley, Jaden, and John. For the first time, she realized that love wasn't only shown in grand gestures, but also in the quiet support systems that sustained life through its hardest moments. Yet something still felt unresolved. Diana couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. The next morning, the Texas sun lit up Diana's porch as she gazed at the freshly replanted garden. Theo, her faithful dog, darted among the bushes, sniffing every corner as if rediscovering his territory. Despite the apparent peace, the revelation from the night before still echoed in her mind. Knowing that Nicholas had planned to protect her future, even after his death, brought unexpected comfort, but also raised new questions. She reflected on John's role and the help he had given, but something about the way Jaden avoided her gaze during the conversation lingered. He seemed to be carrying a weight he hadn't shared, a secret that didn't fully fit into the narrative. As Diana tried to piece it all together, the sound of a car coming up the road caught her attention. A sleek black sedan, gleaming under the sun, stopped in front of the gate. A man stepped out, adjusting his pristine suit while surveying the house with a critical eye. Who could that be? Diana murmured to herself, a pang of unease creeping in. The man walked up to the porch with purposeful strides and an expression that combined arrogance with intent. He was tall, with neatly combed dark hair, and carried a leather briefcase in hand. Before Diana could ask, he spoke. "Mrs. Miller, I presume?" Diana nodded slowly. "Yes, and you are?" "My name is Andrew Carter. I'm a representative of Carter and Associates, a real estate development firm. May we talk?" Diana frowned, suspicion taking hold. "About what?" Andrew offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes. This property. Seated in the living room, Andrew opened his briefcase and laid out a set of documents on the coffee table. He explained that his company was interested in acquiring land in the area to build a residential complex. "Our offer is generous," he said, sliding a paper with figures toward Diana. "I'm sure the amount exceeds any expectations you might have." Diana looked at the numbers, feeling the air leave her lungs. It was a substantial sum, more money than she and Nicholas had ever accumulated in their lifetime, but what Andrew was offering paled in comparison to the emotional value of the house. "I'm sorry, but this house is not for sale," she said firmly, pushing the paper back. Andrew leaned forward, his expression turning more serious. "I understand your attachment to the property, Mrs. Miller, but I urge you to reconsider. This project has the support of the local government, and if necessary, we can initiate an eminent domain process." The word hit like a punch. Diana felt her stomach churn. "Eminent domain," she repeated, her voice trembling. "We'd prefer not to go that route, of course." "We aim for amicable agreements," Andrew replied, standing and adjusting his suit. "Think about the offer. I'll return in a few days." Diana watched in silence as he walked out the door. As Andrew's car disappeared down the road, she felt a crushing weight on her shoulders. They had just rebuilt everything, and now it seemed they were once again at risk of losing it all. When she told Ashley and Jaden about Andrew's visit, the reaction was immediate. "This is outrageous," Ashley exclaimed, her eyes blazing with anger. "They can't do this, Mum." Jaden, however, seemed more cautious. He leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "We can't ignore the threat of eminent domain. If they have government backing, fighting this could get complicated." "So you think we should just give up?" Ashley shot back, crossing her arms. Jaden raised his hands in surrender. "I'm not saying that, but we need to be realistic. A legal battle could be long and expensive." Diana watched the couple in silence. The tension between them was palpable, something she hadn't seen in a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I'm not giving up this house. Nicholas gave everything to build it. You gave everything to restore it. We can't let someone take it away from us." Ashley nodded with determination, but Jaden remained silent, his gaze fixed on the table. The next day, John returned to the house carrying a toolbox. Seeing the worry on Diana's face, he asked what was going on. She explained Andrew Carter's visit. "They want to force you to sell," John asked, his fists clenching. "Or worse, to seize it through eminent domain," Diana replied with a sigh. John thought for a moment, then said, "I know some people who might be able to help, lawyers who deal with cases like this. It won't be easy, but there are ways to fight back." Diana felt a flicker of hope. Having someone experienced on her side made the situation seem less impossible. "Thank you, John. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," he replied with a sincere smile. That night, while everyone slept, Diana was woken by Theo's furious barking. When she reached the porch, she found the gate ajar and tire marks in the driveway. On the ground, a note attached to a rock read, "Accept the offer before it's too late." The message was clear. Whoever was behind the purchase proposal was willing to resort to intimidation to get what they wanted. The next morning, Diana showed the note to Ashley and Jaden. "This is ridiculous," Ashley exclaimed. "We need to go to the police." Jaden looked concerned but unconvinced. "And what will we say? That we received an anonymous threat? We have no proof of who did this." "So you think we should just ignore it?" Ashley snapped, furious. "No, but we need to be strategic," Jaden replied, trying to remain calm. Diana intervened before the argument escalated. "I won't let this intimidate us. We'll get help, just as John suggested." In the days that followed, Diana noticed Jaden becoming increasingly distant. He spent long hours away from home and avoided discussions about the situation. His behavior seemed odd, but she couldn't tell if it was just stress or something more. One afternoon, while tidying Jaden and Ashley's bedroom, Diana found an envelope tucked away in Jaden's drawer. Inside were documents related to Andrew Carter's real estate project. Her heart raced. Why did Jaden have these? When he came home that night, Diana confronted him. "Jaden, did you know about the purchase offer before Andrew's visit?" Jaden turned pale but tried to deflect. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then how do you explain this?" Diana held up the envelope, her voice full of frustration. Jaden sighed, running a hand over his face. "It's not what you think. Then explain," demanded Ashley, who had just entered the room, staring at her husband with wide eyes. Jaden hesitated before finally giving in. Andrew Carter approached me months ago. He knew I had some debts and made an offer. If I helped convince you to sell, he'd pay off everything. The shock on Ashley's face was immediate. What? Diana felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Jaden, how could you? Jaden tried to defend himself. I didn't accept the offer, but I was desperate. I just wanted to find a solution. The tension in the room was unbearable. The silence that followed was more deafening than any shouting could have been. The house was steeped in an oppressive silence. Since Jaden's revelation, Ashley barely spoke to him, limiting their conversations to curt, necessary exchanges. Diana, meanwhile, wrestled with her disappointment and a growing unease. Something told her that Jaden's connection to Andrew Carter ran deeper than he had admitted. As the tension rose, it unearthed emotions and stories long buried. The restored house, once a symbol of hope, now felt like an emotional battlefield. One afternoon, Diana was in the garden pulling weeds when John arrived at the gate. He carried a bag of sunflower seeds, a simple gesture that brought a smile to her face. "I thought you might like to plant something new," he said, handing her the bag. "Thank you, John. You always seem to know what I need." As they worked together, Diana finally found the courage to broach a subject that had haunted her for years. "John, why did you distance yourself after Nicholas returned from the army?" she asked, not looking directly at him. John froze, as if her words had struck a nerve. "It's complicated, Diana. It always has been." She looked at him, waiting for him to continue. "Nicholas was my best friend and I respected him more than anyone. But when he came back, I realized something that was hard to ignore." Diana's heart quickened. "What do you mean?" John hesitated but decided to be honest. "I fell in love with you, Diana. I've always blamed myself for it because I never wanted to betray Nicholas's trust. So, I stepped away, thinking it was the best thing for everyone." Diana was silent, absorbing his words. John, who had always been a quiet figure in her life, now revealed a feeling she had never suspected. "I never knew that," she finally said. "You weren't supposed to," John replied with a sad smile. "My only goal was to make sure you were happy even from a distance." John's confession added a new layer to their relationship, but it also left Diana with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, Ashley was at the local market, picking up groceries for dinner, when she ran into Clara, an old school friend. The two began chatting, but the light-hearted tone quickly shifted when Clara mentioned something surprising. "I heard Jaden's been spending a lot of time at Andrew Carter's office. Is that true?" Ashley felt her blood run cold. "Not that I know of." "Why do you ask?" Clara shrugged, trying to appear casual. Ashley finished the conversation with Clara as quickly as she could and drove home with a knot in her stomach. Clara's words haunted her the entire way. When she arrived, she found Jaden in the yard, mowing the grass. "Can we talk?" she asked, with a serious expression. Jaden nodded, setting the lawnmower aside. "Of course, what's wrong?" Ashley crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on him. "Have you been hiding anything else from me?" Jaden sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, Ash. I've already told you everything. Then why are people saying you've been seen at Andrew Carter's office?" The question caught Jaden off guard. He opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated. The silence was enough to confirm Ashley's suspicions. "So it's true," she said, shaking her head in disbelief. "Ash, I only went there to try to understand better what we're up against. I didn't want you or your mum to worry." Ashley stared at him, her eyes filled with hurt. "You knew how much this meant to my mum. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to make things worse," he replied, frustrated. "I'm trying to help, Ash, but it feels like everything I do just makes it worse." The argument ended with Ashley storming into the house and slamming the door. Jaden stayed in the yard, staring at the freshly cut grass as if it might offer the answers he needed. Meanwhile, Diana decided to take matters into her own hands. She sought out John and asked for his help investigating Andrew Carter and his company. "I want to know who we're dealing with," she said with determination. John agreed, and using his local connections, uncovered some troubling information. Andrew Carter was known for using intimidation tactics to acquire properties and had multiple lawsuits pending against his company. What truly caught Diana's attention was a detail in the documents John found. A clause in the purchase contracts that allowed the company to convert acquired land into industrial zones, something Andrew had never mentioned in his proposals. "He's lying," Diana concluded, showing the papers to Ashley and Jaden. "This is worse than I imagined," Ashley said, outraged. Jayden examined the documents, his expression tense. "If this is true, we might have a chance to fight back. But we'll need more evidence." As tensions rose, the family relationships in the house also suffered. Ashley remained distant from Jayden, while Diana tried unsuccessfully to mediate the conflicts. One night, while everyone was in the living room, Diana finally spoke up. "We can't let this tear us apart. Andrew Carter has already taken the peace from this house. We won't let him take our family too." Ashley looked at her mother, moved. "I just wanted to protect you, Mom. I wanted this to be a new beginning." "And it is," Diana replied, taking her hand. "But we need to fight together." Jayden, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this, no matter what it costs." The tension hung in the air like an invisible weight. While the family began working together to oppose Andrew Carter, the secrets and lies of the past continued to surface, complicating the situation even further. The decision to fight for the property brought a glimmer of hope, but the battle was far from simple, and the first blow came from an unexpected place. A week after Andrew's threatening visit, John arrived at Diana's house again, this time holding an envelope and wearing a worried expression. "Diana, we need to talk," he said, his voice carrying an urgency that made her immediately invite him inside. Ashley and Jayden were in the kitchen, discussing strategies to gather evidence against Carter and associates, but they stopped when they heard the seriousness in John's voice. "What happened?" Diana asked, frowning. John placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward her. "I found this while investigating Andrew Carter. It's about the eminent domain he mentioned." Diana opened the envelope with trembling fingers and pulled out the documents. As she read them, her breathing grew heavy. This can't be true," she said, looking at John. Ashley grabbed the papers and began reading aloud. "Eminent domain authorization approved by the local council. Property to be used for commercial development as outlined in the contract with Carter and Associates." Jayden, standing next to Ashley, looked stunned. "They've already gotten approval? How is that possible?" John sighed, looking uncomfortable. "This is where it gets complicated. Andrew Carter secured political support to expedite the process. He's playing dirty but within the bounds of legality." Diana felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She clung to the table for support. "Does this mean they can just take the house from us?" "Not so fast," John said. "There's still time to fight, but we'll need proof that Carter and Associates is violating some regulation. Without that, they'll have the right to force you out." Faced with the imminent risk of losing their home again, the family decided to act. Ashley began digging into the company's records, looking for any loophole they could use against them. Jayden, for his part, used his local contacts to find witnesses who could speak out about Andrew's questionable practices. Diana, despite her age, insisted on being actively involved. "This is my house, and I won't just sit while you all do the work." "Mom, you've already done so much," Ashley said, concerned. "And I'll do more. If this is the last fight of my life, let it be for something that truly matters." Diana's strength inspired everyone around her, but the fight ahead would not be easy. One afternoon, as Diana worked in the garden, a familiar car pulled up in the driveway. Andrew Carter stepped out, this time without his briefcase. He walked toward Diana with a smile that seemed almost disarming. "Mrs. Miller, may I steal a moment of your time?" he asked, stopping a few feet away. Diana stood up, wiping her hands on her clothes but keeping her posture firm. "I don't know what else there is to say. My answer remains the same." Andrew sighed, appearing genuinely disappointed. "I didn't come to discuss the sale, at least not directly. I want you to understand that this project isn't just for me. It will bring benefits to the community, jobs, development, infrastructure. And you think that justifies destroying what's left of my life?" Diana shot back without hesitation. Andrew studied her for a moment, as if weighing his next move. "I understand your emotional attachment to this house, I truly do, but sometimes we have to leave the past behind to build something new." Diana stepped forward, meeting his gaze with determined eyes. "Andrew, this house isn't just bricks and wood, it's my home. It's where my husband and I built our life, where we created memories. And I won't let you or anyone else take that away from me." Andrew was silent for a few seconds before finally saying, "I see you won't be easily convinced, but I'll warn you, if you keep fighting this, things may get complicated." He returned to his car, leaving Diana with a sense of unease. That night, While everyone was gathered in the living room, Ashley received an email from a contact she had secured at the city council. She opened the attached file and began to read, but abruptly stopped, her hand covering her mouth. "What is it?" Diana asked anxiously. Ashley looked around, her expression incredulous. "It's a contract between Carter and Associates and someone who agreed to collaborate with them to facilitate the eminent domain process." "Who?" Jaden asked, now equally apprehensive. Ashley hesitated before saying, "You, Jaden. Your name is on the contract." The shock was instant. Diana looked at her son-in-law, her heart racing. "Jaden, is this true?" Jaden seemed paralyzed but quickly shook his head vehemently. "No, I never signed anything." "Then how did your name end up on this document?" Ashley demanded, her voice heavy with hurt. Jaden took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "It must be a setup. Andrew knew I was vulnerable because of my debts. He must have forged my signature to incriminate me." Diana wanted to believe him, but the doubt was undeniable. "Jaden, if that's true, we need to prove it," she said firmly. "And how do we do that?" Ashley asked, exasperated. John, who had been listening silently until that point, spoke up. "We need to confront Andrew directly. He's playing dirty, but if we can get him to contradict himself, we can use that against him." The next morning, Diana made a bold decision. She went to Andrew Carter's office without telling anyone. When she entered, she found him at his desk, surprised by her unexpected visit. "Mrs. Miller, what an honor. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Diana sat down across from him, keeping her gaze steady. "I want to clarify something, Andrew. Did you forge Jaden's signature to try and divide us?" Andrew smiled, but his eyes were cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you know very well," Diana replied, leaning forward. "And I'm going to find out the truth, whether you cooperate or not." For the first time, Andrew appeared uncomfortable. He picked up a pen from his desk and began twirling it between his fingers as if stalling for time. "Mrs. Miller, I admire your determination, but sometimes the battles we choose to fight cost us more than we're willing to pay." Diana didn't respond, but she left the office with the sense that he was hiding something much bigger. Diana's visit to Andrew Carter's office was the catalyst for a new wave of tension. The family, already fractured by the revelation that Jaden's name appeared on the Carter and Associates contract, now faced battles on multiple fronts: the imminent threat of eminent domain, the mysteries surrounding Andrew, and the internal fractures that seemed to deepen with each passing day. That evening, Diana recounted her visit to the office, including her strange encounter with a man who had been watching her from a distance. "He seemed familiar, but I couldn't place him. I think he's connected to Andrew," she said as everyone gathered in the living room. "That's dangerous, Mom," Ashley warned, worried. "You shouldn't have gone alone." "I needed to confront him. He's trying to intimidate us, and I won't allow it." Jaden, who had been sitting quietly in the corner of the room, finally spoke. "What did you get out of him?" "Nothing direct, but he's hiding something. And that man who was watching me wasn't there by coincidence." John, who was also present, added, "If this man is connected to Andrew, he might be a weak link. We should try to find out who he is." Diana agreed, but deep down, she felt there was something much larger at play. In the days that followed, Ashley delved into the documents sent by the city council, searching for inconsistencies that could incriminate Carter and Associates. Meanwhile, Jaden grew increasingly distant, spending long hours away from home without offering convincing explanations. One evening, Ashley finally decided to confront him. "Jaden, we need to talk," she said, crossing her arms as he walked through the door. "Not now, Ash. I'm exhausted." "It's not a choice," Ashley replied firmly. "You're hiding something, and I want to know what it is." Jaden sighed, letting his bag drop to the floor. "I'm not hiding anything, Ash. I'm trying to fix this." "Then why won't you tell me what you're doing? Why have you met with Andrew Carter more than once?" Jaden stayed silent for a moment before finally giving in. "Fine. I met with him again. He said he had a proposal to end all this without involving anyone else." Ashley's eyes widened in disbelief. "And you believed him?" "Of course not," Jaden replied, raising his voice. "But I needed to hear what he had to say." "And what did he say?" Jaden hesitated before responding. "He offered me money to convince you to give up the house." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ashley stared at him with tears in her eyes. "And you're considering it?" Jaden looked at her, hurt. "I would never do that, but I wanted to see how far he'd go to get what he wants." "And what did you find out?" asked Diana, who had overheard the conversation from the doorway. Jaden took a deep breath. He said he's under pressure from his investors. If he doesn't acquire this property, he stands to lose a lot of money. That makes him dangerous. The next day, while working in the garden, Diana received a call from John. "Diana, I got a lead on the man you saw at Andrew's office. He's a former employee of Carter and Associates. He was fired a few months ago and is suing the company for illegal practices." Diana felt her heart race. This could be the proof we need. "I'll try to arrange a meeting with him. He might be able to help," John said. However, the hope was accompanied by a new worry. If this man was already involved in legal battles, he could be in danger. And by involving themselves, Diana and her family might be placing themselves at the center of something much larger. 2 days later, Andrew Carter made another visit, this time with a group of lawyers. He entered the house without waiting for an invitation, his presence dominating the room. "Mrs. Miller, I'm here as a final act of good faith. If you accept our offer now, we can avoid legal complications." "We're not selling," Diana replied firmly. Andrew sighed, glancing at the lawyers by his side. "Then I'm legally obligated to inform you that we'll be initiating the eminent domain process next week." Ashley stepped forward furious. "You're a manipulator. We won't let you take this house from us." Andrew raised his hands as if trying to calm her. "I understand your passion, but passion doesn't pay bills. Think about what we're offering. It could change your lives." "We've already changed our lives by rebuilding this house," Diana retorted, "and we're not giving it up." Andrew shot a piercing look at Diana before leaving. "You've made your choice. I hope you don't regret it." The warning felt like a threat, and everyone knew the battle was about to reach a new level. Later that night, John returned to the house, his expression a mixture of concern and guilt. "Diana, I need to confess something," he said, sitting down on the couch beside her. "What is it?" she asked, alarmed by his serious tone. John took a deep breath before answering. "I also had contact with Andrew Carter before all this began. He came to me knowing I was helping rebuild your house. He tried to buy me off to abandon the project." Diana sat silently, processing the revelation. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Because I'm ashamed to admit I considered his offer, even if only for a moment. But then I realized he didn't just want the house, he wanted to destroy what it represents." Diana looked at John, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "Thank you for being honest with me, John, but we need you now more than ever." "I'll always be here for you," he replied. With John's help, Diana managed to contact the mysterious man, whose name was Samuel Hayes. He revealed critical information about Carter and Associates' practices, including record manipulation and bribes to city officials. "Andrew Carter is dangerous, but he's also arrogant. He thinks no one has the guts to stand up to him," Samuel said. Diana and Ashley began compiling the evidence Samuel provided, while John sought out a lawyer willing to take the case. Jaden, on the other hand, grappled with an internal struggle, trying to regain his family's trust while feeling guilty for having been an easy target for Andrew. The quiet Texas night was broken only by the distant sound of crickets. Inside the house, Diana pored over the documents Samuel had given them, while Ashley and John discussed legal strategies in the kitchen. Jaden, detached from the group, sat on the porch with Theo lying at his feet, lost in thought. As everyone worked to gather their strength for the battle ahead, the danger was closer than they realized. Outside, figures in a black car watched every move inside the house. Around midnight, Diana was the first to hear a strange noise coming from the yard. At first, she thought it was Theo, but when she looked out the kitchen window, she saw something that made her heart race. 2 shadows moving among the trees near the house. "Ashley, John!" she called, trying to keep her voice low but urgent. The 2 came running, and Jaden, alerted by Diana's tone, entered through the front door. "What's going on?" he asked, seeing the worry on Diana's face. "I think we're being watched," she replied, pointing toward the yard. John went to the back door and turned on the outdoor light. For a moment, nothing seemed out of place, but then the sound of shattering glass echoed through the house. "What was that?" Ashley shouted, clutching Diana's arm. Before anyone could react, the room was filled with a strong chemical odor. A small, smoking canister had been thrown through the window, releasing a dense cloud that made everyone start coughing. "Get out!" John yelled, covering his face with a cloth and helping Diana toward the door. As they rushed outside, 2 masked men appeared, one holding a flashlight, the other what looked like a stun gun. "Stay where you are," one of them ordered, his voice rough and menacing. John instinctively placed himself between Diana and the intruders. "What do you want?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "Just a message," one of the men replied, stepping forward slowly. "Mrs. Miller needs to reconsider selling the house." "Never!" Diana shouted, her voice strained from the coughing. The man took another step forward, but before he could say more, Theo lunged, growling fiercely. The dog attacked one of them, forcing him to drop the flashlight and retreat. Jaden seized the opportunity to pull Diana and Ashley toward the car. "Get in!" he yelled, while John grabbed a rock, ready to defend them. The men quickly retreated, climbing into their car and disappearing into the darkness. But the message was clear. Andrew Carter was no longer playing fair. After the attack, the house was in chaos. Broken windows, the lingering chemical smell, and above all the fear etched on everyone's faces, made it clear that the situation had escalated dangerously. "This has gone too far," Ashley said, wiping away tears as she looked at the damage. "We can't stay here, and we can't run either," Diana replied with renewed determination. "This house is all we have. I won't let them force us out like this." Jaden, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. "Diana's right. Running would only show we're scared. We need to fight back." John nodded in agreement. "We'll increase security and get the police involved. We also need to act quickly with the evidence Samuel gave us." The next day, Diana, John, and Ashley met Samuel Hayes at a small cafe in town. The former Carter and Associates employee was visibly nervous, glancing around as if expecting someone to follow him. "I'm risking a lot just being here," he said, placing a thick envelope on the table. "These are internal documents proving the bribes Carter and Associates paid to city officials." Diana opened the envelope and found altered contracts, emails, and even bank statements. It was exactly what they needed. "Is this enough to stop Andrew?" Ashley asked. Samuel nodded but spoke with a warning tone. "Yes, but don't think he'll go down without a fight. He has powerful allies." Diana took Samuel's hand, grateful. "Thank you for doing this. I know it wasn't easy. I just want justice, and maybe a little peace to move on," he replied with a timid smile. Armed with the documents, Diana and her family filed a lawsuit against Carter and Associates, accusing the company of corruption and predatory practices. The news quickly spread through town, attracting the attention of local media and activist groups. Andrew Carter, always confident, began to feel the pressure. During an interview with a local TV station, he tried to deflect the accusations, but the reporters pressed him. "Mr. Carter, there are rumors that your company bribed city officials to obtain improper approvals. What do you have to say about that?" "Those rumors are completely unfounded," he replied, maintaining his composure. "Carter and Associates operates within the law and has always prioritized transparency. But the documents Diana had provided were already in the hands of an investigative journalist who began publicly exposing the irregularities. Despite their progress, Diana felt there was still a missing piece. One night, while reviewing the documents again, she found a reference to a name that caught her attention: Nicholas Miller. "Why is Nicholas's name here?" she murmured, calling Ashley over. Ashley looked at the document, confused. "It seems like an old transaction, but for what purpose?" John, who was helping with the investigation, approached. "Maybe it's related to the renovations he was planning before all this. Or maybe it's something Andrew used to worm his way into our lives," Diana said, her expression serious. Upon deeper investigation, they discovered that Nicholas, before his death, had been approached by Carter and Associates with a proposal similar to the one Diana had received. However, not only had Nicholas refused, he had also provided information to local authorities about the company's questionable practices. Andrew, it seemed, had a personal motive to destroy the Miller family: revenge. With this revelation, Diana felt a mix of anger and determination. They're trying to destroy what Nicholas left because he was the only one brave enough to stand up to them. Well, now it's my turn to finish what he started. As the legal battle intensified, Andrew made one last attempt to pressure them, offering an exorbitant financial settlement for Diana to drop the case. "You could be rich, Mrs. Miller. All you need to do is sign and let this go," he said during a final visit. Diana met his gaze with a firm, unwavering look. "I'm not selling my house, Andrew, and I'm not selling my husband's memory." Diana's response sealed the fate of the confrontation, which was now nearing its climax. Diana's home, nestled among the golden fields of Texas, had become a battlefield, both literal and emotional. The fight against Andrew Carter had grown into something far greater than a dispute over a piece of land. It was a war for dignity, for Nicholas's memory, and for preserving the meaning of home. News of Diana's resistance began to spread through the town, attracting neighbors, activists, and even reporters. Meanwhile, the pressure on Andrew and his company intensified, and he seemed more determined than ever to use every resource at his disposal to win. As the case gained local attention, a group of environmental activists contacted Diana. They wanted to help protect her home, arguing that the surrounding land contained centuries-old trees and native plants that could be destroyed if the property were used for commercial purposes. Mrs. Miller, we can use this as another line of defense, explained Lisa Hart, a young activist with contagious enthusiasm. If we can get the land classified as a protected area, it will be almost impossible for Carter and associates to proceed with their plans. Diana, touched by the unexpected solidarity, accepted their help. The more allies we have, the better, she said. Soon, neighbors began showing up at the house, bringing food, words of encouragement, and in some cases, stories of how they too had suffered from Carter and associates' predatory practices. Diana no longer felt alone, but she knew the fight was still hers and her family's. While Ashley worked tirelessly on the documents provided by Samuel Hayes, she uncovered something critical: a bank transfer linked to one of the town council members. The amount was significant and coincided with the period when Andrew had secured approval for the eminent domain process. He bribed local officials to fast-track the approval, Ashley said, showing the records to Diana and John. John studied the documents, shaking his head. This is enough to bring Andrew to trial, but we'll need someone willing to testify against him. Ashley sighed. Samuel's already done so much. I don't know if he'd be willing to take that risk. Diana, however, knew they had no choice. They needed Samuel one more time. The following night, Diana, Ashley, and John met Samuel in a discreet parking lot in town. He seemed even more nervous than before, constantly glancing over his shoulder. What do you need now? He asked, his tone weary. Ashley explained the need for testimony connecting Andrew directly to the bribes. Samuel hesitated, rubbing his hands nervously. You know what this means for me, right? He'll come after me if I do this. Samuel, you've already shown you're braver than you think, Diana said, holding his hand. We're not asking this just for us. It's for everyone who's suffered because of him. Samuel was silent for a moment, but finally nodded. All right, I'll do it. The agreement was made, but everyone knew the stakes were now higher than ever. 2 days later, as the family prepared for a meeting with their lawyers, a new threat arrived. An official letter from the town council was delivered to the house. When Ashley opened it, she went pale. It's an eviction notice, she said, her voice trembling. They've scheduled a date for the forced removal. Diana read the document, feeling her anger rise. This is dirty play. They know we're close to exposing everything, and they're trying to pressure us. Jaden, who was working hard to regain the family's trust, stepped in. Then we need to move fast. Let's take everything we have to the press. If we can expose Andrew publicly, he might be forced to back down. That could work, but we need to be careful, John warned. Andrew's already shown he has no limits. The decision was made. They would present the documents and Samuel's testimony to the media before the eviction date arrived. That night, the family gathered on the porch, feeling the weight of what was to come. Diana, with Theo lying at her feet, looked at Ashley, Jaden, and John. I know this has been hard on all of us, but I want you to know how proud I am of you. No matter what happens, we've already shown we won't surrender. Ashley took her mother's hand. We're going to win, Mom. For you. For Dad. Jaden, still fighting to redeem himself, added, and for everything this house represents. John nodded, gazing at the starry sky. They may have power and money, but we have something they'll never have: courage. That night was marked by a sense of renewal. Despite everything, the family was united again, and that in itself was a victory. A few days before the press conference, Andrew appeared at the house once more, this time unannounced. He was accompanied by 2 intimidating-looking men who stayed outside while he entered. Mrs. Miller, I'm here to offer one final chance to resolve this peacefully, he said, placing a check on the table. Diana looked at the check and laughed. A bitter, ironic laugh. You think you can buy everything, don't you? I'm trying to prevent this from getting worse for everyone, Andrew replied coolly. Diana stood up, facing him. It's already worse, but not for me, for you, because now Everyone knows who you really are." Andrew lost his composure for a moment, slamming his hand on the table. "You're going to regret this." Diana didn't flinch. "Not as much as you'll regret underestimating this family." Andrew left, furious. But the warning was clear. He wouldn't back down easily. The next morning, the family headed to the local TV station to deliver the evidence and record their interview. Samuel also attended, though visibly nervous. As the cameras rolled, Diana shared her story with emotion and resolve, exposing not only the personal impact of her struggle, but also the predatory practices of Andrew Carter. Samuel corroborated her account with his testimony and the documents he had provided. The news aired that evening, gaining widespread attention in the town and beyond. Meanwhile, Andrew faced a new wave of lawsuits and investigations, and the pressure on him became unbearable. The tension reached its peak on the morning Andrew Carter's legal team attempted to act. The eviction notice had already been issued, but the Millers' fight and the public's attention turned what should have been a quiet operation into a spectacle. Journalists, activists, and neighbors surrounded the house, waiting to witness the outcome of this battle. Inside, Diana, Ashley, Jaden, and John were prepared. Samuel had sent a message confirming that the evidence had been accepted by a state task force, but it was unclear whether it would be enough to stop Andrew. "They're here," warned Lisa, the young activist who had set up camp in front of the property. Diana looked at her children and John, feeling the weight of the moment. "No matter what happens, stay together. Remember, this house is more than bricks. It's our story." Shortly after 9 in the morning, a convoy of black cars and a moving truck arrived at the property entrance. Andrew Carter, accompanied by lawyers and city representatives, stepped out of one of the cars with a confident expression. "Mrs. Miller," he called, clipboard in hand, "this is a final notice. If you don't leave voluntarily, we will be forced to remove you." Diana stepped off the porch, walking slowly to the gate with Ashley and John at her side. Journalists rushed to capture the moment, cameras flashing and microphones raised. "We've already said we're not leaving, Mr. Carter, and now everyone knows why," Diana declared. Andrew offered a cynical smile. "Ah, yes, your media stunt. I admired your attempt, but as you can see, it wasn't enough." Diana stared at him, her anger fueled by years of loss and pain. "Never underestimate the power of the truth, Andrew." At that moment, the sound of sirens echoed down the road, and everyone turned to see 2 police cars approaching. Andrew frowned, visibly irritated. "What's going on here?" he demanded, as a uniformed officer stepped out of the lead car. The officer, identified as Sheriff Tom Briggs, approached Diana with a respectful nod before turning to Andrew. "Mr. Carter, we have an investigative warrant against you and your company. We'd like you to accompany us to the station for questioning." Andrew tried to maintain his composure, but sweat began to bead on his forehead. "This is ridiculous. There's no legal basis for this investigation." The sheriff held up an envelope. "Actually, there is, and the evidence was provided by people brave enough to stand up to you." At that moment, Samuel Hayes emerged from the crowd, walking up to the gate. "And I'm one of those people," he said firmly. Andrew glared at Samuel with pure hatred. "You'll regret this." Samuel stood his ground. "Maybe. But at least now I'll be able to sleep at night." Despite the police intervention, Andrew still had a card to play. As he was led away by the officers, he turned to Diana. "Even if they take me down, you won't have peace. Carter and Associates doesn't depend on me alone. My absence won't change anything." Diana didn't waver. "Maybe you're right, Andrew, but unlike you, we have something money can't buy: true support." As Andrew was taken away, his warning lingered in the air. There were still allies of his within the system, and Diana knew the fight wasn't over yet. In the days that followed, the Miller family focused on the lawsuit against Carter and Associates. The documents provided by Samuel, along with the testimony of Diana, Ashley, and John, formed a strong case. However, the company hired an influential legal team, and the courtroom battle was intense. On the second day of the trial, Diana took the witness stand. Andrew's lawyer tried to discredit her, insinuating that her resistance to selling the property was fueled by personal vengeance. "Mrs. Miller, isn't your refusal to sell the property simply an attempt to harm Mr. Carter?" Diana took a deep breath before responding. "I'm not fighting Andrew Carter out of vengeance. I'm fighting because I believe some things can't be bought. This house is more than wood and bricks. It's where my family built their life." and I'll protect it, no matter the cost. Her words moved not only those in the courtroom, but also the public following the case through the media. On the third day of the trial, Andrew's defense suffered a devastating blow. An unexpected witness appeared. Patrick Green, a former Carter and Associates executive who had fled to another state after falling out with Andrew. Patrick revealed details about the company's operations, including schemes of bribery and threats used to acquire properties. Andrew Carter built his empire on fear. He manipulated people and systems to get what he wanted, without caring about the consequences. Patrick's testimony was the final blow. The judge ruled in favor of the Miller family, halting the eminent domain process and ordering a full investigation into Carter and Associates practices. When the decision was announced, Diana felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She hugged Ashley, who cried with relief, and then John, whose satisfied smile showed his pride. Even Jaden, who had faced so many doubts and mistakes, finally found his place back with the family. However, the victory came at a cost. Diana knew that the public exposure and legal battle had left scars. Additionally, the house still needed repairs after the initial attack. As the community celebrated the victory, Diana reflected on all they had lost and gained. "Nicholas would have been proud of us," she said to Ashley as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Ashley held her mother's hand. "He wouldn't just have been proud, Mom. He would have fought alongside us." With Andrew Carter out of the picture and his company crumbling under investigations, Diana and her family began to rebuild their lives. The house, once again, became a symbol of resistance and hope. John, whose presence had been essential throughout the struggle, decided to stay in town indefinitely, helping with the property's repairs. His friendship with Diana, now deeper than ever, was a reminder that true human connections were stronger than any adversity. Jaden used his experience to help other families facing similar threats, while Ashley found a new strength within herself, determined to protect everything she loved. Sitting on the porch with Theo at her feet, Diana felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. Though she knew new challenges might arise, she was ready to face them. With the legal victory secured and Andrew Carter's downfall underway, Diana's house returned to being a home filled with hope. Yet the battle had left deep marks on the family, the community, and Diana herself, who now had to deal with the emotional and practical consequences of their long struggle. The first days after the verdict were dedicated to rebuilding. Journalists and activists continued to visit the property, eager to learn more about the family that had defied one of the region's largest corporations. But for Diana, the constant attention was exhausting. "We finally won, but sometimes it feels like we're still fighting," she confessed to Ashley as they rearranged the furniture in the living room. Ashley looked at her mother with affection. "Achieving something like this is tiring, Mum, but now it's time to rebuild, and we can do that together." The decision not to sell the house and stand up to Carter and Associates inspired other families in the area. Neighbors began mobilizing to protect their own properties, reporting practices similar to those Diana had faced. Lisa Hart, the young activist who had helped during the process, organized a community event at the house to celebrate the victory. "This house is a symbol of resistance," she said to a small crowd gathered in the yard, "and that's why we'll fight to make sure stories like this never happen again." Diana, moved, thanked everyone who had supported her family. "You've turned a difficult moment into something I'll never forget. This house isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to everyone who believes in the power of standing firm." Jaden's journey had been one of the most transformative throughout the conflict. Initially distrusted for his involvement with Andrew Carter, he used the experience to redeem himself. Jaden began working with a local NGO that supported families threatened by predatory practices, offering legal advice and emotional support. One night, while sitting on the porch, Diana looked at Jaden and said, "Nicholas always said it's not what you did in the past that defines you, but what you choose to do now. I'm proud of you, Jaden." He smiled, visibly moved. "Thank you, Diana, for believing in me even when I didn't deserve it." Jaden and Ashley's relationship also grew stronger. Despite the tensions, the struggle showed them that together they could face anything. "I spent so much time thinking I had to do everything alone," Ashley said as they walked through the yard. "But you were by my side the whole time." Jaden took her hand. "I always will be." John, who had been a pillar of strength throughout the crisis, remained a constant presence in Diana's life. They spent hours on the porch, reminiscing about Nicholas and sharing stories from their own lives. "John, sometimes I wonder what Nicholas would think of all this," Diana said on a quiet evening. John smiled. "He'd be proud. He always knew you were stronger than any storm." Diana chuckled softly, her gaze tender. "You were part of this too, John. I don't know what I would have done without you." Their friendship began to deepen, bringing forth feelings they both thought were in the past. Though Diana still carried her eternal love for Nicholas, she realized that life also offered new possibilities for connection and companionship. As the Miller family rebuilt their lives, Andrew Carter faced the consequences of his actions. Investigated for corruption, bribery, and threats, he was forced to resign as CEO of Carter and Associates. "Arrogance was his downfall," John remarked as he read the news in the paper. Samuel Hayes, whose courage had played a crucial role in the victory, became a symbol of resilience for other employees of the company. He received job offers from various organizations and, for the first time in years, felt he had a promising future. "I thought I'd never escape Andrew's shadow," he told Diana during a visit to the house. "But you gave us the final piece we needed, Samuel." "We're grateful for that," Diana replied. With the community's help, the house was fully restored, even improved in some ways. The porch swing was reinforced, and the garden blossomed with new flowers planted by the neighbors. "It's more beautiful than ever," Ashley said, admiring the finished work. "It's more than I could have dreamed of," Diana replied, holding Theo in her lap. As she walked through the yard, Diana felt a wave of gratitude for everything they had overcome. That evening, the family gathered around the table for a special dinner. It was the first time in months that they truly felt at peace. "We've faced so much together," Diana said, raising her glass of tea. "But what I've learned most is that love, support, and truth are stronger than any adversity." Ashley, with tears in her eyes, added, "And that, even in the hardest times, we are never alone." John nodded, smiling. "This house isn't just a place, it's a legacy." Months later, Diana's house became a landmark in the town, a symbol of resistance against injustice. Local schools brought students to hear the Miller family's story, and activists used the house as a base for new campaigns to protect family properties. Diana, now 76, continued living there with Theo, with Ashley and Jaden always close by. John visited often, and their friendship continued to flourish. One sunny morning, as Diana watered the garden, she felt a gentle breeze that seemed to carry something special. Looking up at the sky, she smiled. "We did it, Nicholas. We did it." If this story touched you in any way and sparked your curiosity for more emotional and inspiring tales, don't stop here. Subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and stay updated with new stories that might change your perspective on life. Each video is an invitation to explore narratives that resonate with the heart. Speaking of which, why not click on the next video? I'm sure it'll move you as well. See you there.